Hey everyone, my name is Roy Maynard O. San Lorenzo.
And John Christopher Viver de Flor.
So our topic for today is
It's all about 20th century
contemporary arts.
During 1970s is what most people consider as the beginning of contemporary arts, and it still continue to the present today.
The 70s saw postmodernism and ugly realism, along with the feminist art, neo-conceptualism, and neo-expressionism. These are examples of feminist art, neo-conceptualism, and neo-expressionism.
The 80s were filled with Neo Geo, multiculturalism, and the graffiti movement, as well as Brit art and neo-pop. This is the example of the Neo Geo and multiculturalism and the others.
During the 90s, art movements became less defined and somewhat unusual, almost as if people had run out of names. Net art, Actifactoria, Toyism, Lowbrow, Betterism, and Stackism are some of the style of the decade. These are examples of net art, Artifactoria, Toyism, Lowbrow, Betterism, and Stackism. And though it's still new, the 21st century has its own Tinkism and Phonism to enjoy.
Contemporary arts is the art of today, provided in the second half of the 20th century or in the 21st century. Contemporary artists works in a globally influenced, cultural diverse, and technological advancing world. Their art is a dynamic combination of materials, methods, concept, and subject that continue the challenging of boundaries that was already well underway in the 20th century. Diverse and eclectic contemporary arts as a whole is distinguished by the very lack of the uniform organizing principle, ideology, or ism. Contemporary arts is a part of the cultural dialogue that concerns larger contextual frameworks such as personal and cultural identity, family, communities, and nationalism. This is the example in artwork of contemporary arts.
Arts movement and style throughout history, artists have produced art in a variety of media and arts following different philosophies and ideals, although labeling may often result in being reduction different artistic tendencies or style can be grouped in collective titles known as art movement of speaking. Art seems like a discipline in itself to you. Here we provide you with the top terms of arts movements and style from classicism to futurism, from baroque to avant-garde. Madonna in Child in Glory was painted by one of the most influential artists of the late 13th and early 14th century, Dacio de Buenasigna. This is iconic image of the Madonna in Child, seen throughout the history of Western art, holds significant value in terms of stylistic innovation of religious subject matter that would continue to evolve for continuous. Madonna and Child with Saint John the Baptist is lost composition is known through a handful of faithful, attributed to artist and Leonardo's circle an original underdrawing by Leonardo may be preserved. The next is effect of humanism and Renaissance arts. Works become centered around the human individual and the earthly experience rather than the heavenly realms. Let's continue. Deliverance of Saint Peter is a fresco painting by the Italian high Renaissance artist Raphael. It was painted in 1514. The liberation of the Apostle Peter is an event described in the Acts of the Apostle, chapter 12, in which the Apostle Peter is rescued from prison by an angel. And the next R is about the creation of Adam. It's a fresco painting by Italian artist Michelangelo, which formed part of the Sistine Chapel ceiling painted 1508 to 1512. It illustrates the biblical creation narrative from the book of Genesis, in which God gives life to Adam, the first man. The Last Supper is a late 15th century mural painting by Italian artist Leonardo da Vinci housed by the refectory of the Choir of Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan, Italy. And the next R is Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa, 1503-1519 AD. Painting by Italian artist Leonardo da Vinci, considered an archetypal masterpiece of Italian Renaissance has been described as the best known. The Vain Eater, 1582 AD, and Girl with a Fair Earring is an oil painting by Dutch Golden Age painter Johannes Vermeer, dated c. 1665 AD. David is a masterpiece of Renaissance sculpture created in a marble between 1501 to 1504 AD by the Italian artist Michelangelo. David is a 5.17-meter, 17-feet marble statue of the biblical figure David, a favored subject in the art of Florence. The Pietà is a work of Renaissance sculpture by Michelangelo to 1499 AD. And then Moses. And the second is effect of humanism of Renaissance art. The imitation or the rebirth, as the word Renaissance implies, of the ancient Greek and the Roman cultures. The birth of Venus, 1486 AD. The Skull of Athens is a fresco by the Italian Renaissance artist Raphael. It was painted between 1509 AD. Hercules and Cacus is a white sculpture to the right of the entrance of Palazzo Vecchio and the Piazza della Signoria, Florence, Italy, 1525 to 1534 AD. In this one of the picture, 12th century Mary Magdalena announcing the resurrection to the apostle. And the next are the flagellation of Christ, 15th century. Perspective, the art of drawing solid object on a two-dimensional surface so as to give the right impression of their height, width, and depth. The Vitruvian Man, it was a study of the proportion of the human body, as described by Vitruvius, a Roman architect from the 1st century BC. Based on his observation of European people of his day, Leonardo believed that arm span was equal to height in a perfect proportioned body. Dome of St. Peter's Basilica is an Italian church in Vatican City. St. Peter's Square is a large plaza located directly in front of St. Peter Basilica in the Vatican City. Cathedral of Florence in Italy, architect Filippo Brunelleschi. Basilica of San Lorenzo is one of the largest churches of Florence, Italy, situated at the center of city, main market district and the burial place of all the principal members of the Medici family.
Could we possibly imagine the history of 20th century painting without his Le Demoiselle d'Avignon or Guernica? Would today's art market make sense? Hardly, because Pablo Picasso is arguably the greatest figure of modernism and co-creator of one of the most influential movements, Cubism. He is the man who made us look at our entire existence in a completely different way, as he introduced multiple points of view and various interpretations of a single subject. Pablo Picasso's art, influenced by French Impressionist art at the dawn of the century, spanned a number of periods, such as the blue and the rose, and had a great impact on the further development of not just painting, but also sculpture, ceramics, and printmaking. Now let me show you just a few pieces of Pablo Picasso. The Old Guitarist of 1903 and 4. The Old Guitarist is an oil painting which Pablo created somewhere between years of 1903 and 1904. This dark-themed Picasso painting portrays an old weak man hunched over his guitar and playing his instrument on the streets of Barcelona. It is said that Picasso painted this piece after his close friend Casagemas had decided to take his own life. This was also the time when he turned a sympathetic ear towards the downtrodden and those struck by poverty, presenting us with visuals comparable to the gritty work of El Greco. The Old Guitarist, often highlighted as the crown of Picasso's blue period. Now let's proceed to the next piece of Pablo Picasso, Girl with a Mandolin of 1910. As evidenced by the Girl with a Mandolin, the pictorial language of Picasso's paintings had already become increasingly hard to decipher by the winter of 1910. This is one of the most interesting examples that history has in its arsenal in that regard, as Pablo's images were becoming more abstract, but not entirely so. Picasso was steadily divesting his images of mere likeness. That is undeniable, but this was not the same as progressive elimination of the subject commonly found, for example, in Wassily Kandinsky's work. Despite the significant problems of analysis and interpretation which this picture presents, Girl with Mandolin is by no means totally devoid of realism. Now for the last piece, I am going to show you Man with a Pipe, 1915. Definitely created under the emotional impact of such an uncomfortable situation, Man with a Pipe was painted in the year of 1915. The entire colorful composition is underlined by quiet humor and feeling of composure, aspects of Picasso did not often have in this repertoire. The use of pointillist style dots herald Picasso's return to color exploration, as well as his interest in the development of interior design processes.